So this is the last presentation in a fairly packed session, and since we're already a little bit late in time, I'm going to try to keep it as concise as possible. So this is so the topic that I'm going to talk about is policies on the employment of foreign workers. This is co-work with Kieran Lee at the Korea Labor Institute, who wasn't able to make it here today. And this is a topic that is increasingly becoming more important, especially in view of the demographic challenges that Korea is facing today. That has been an issue that has been already raised several times today, and which is also very controversial because it is about bringing in actual people. It is also a topic where there is little known about, especially outside of Korea, and I'm hoping that this contribution will prove informative to people, especially from the OECD and else. So I'm first going to talk about some recent trends in migration flows, and then fill you in about institutional background, which is especially important for this kind of topic, and then finally talk about some issues and challenges that we are facing. So Korea has been a very homogeneous society for a very long time, but that has been changing for quite a few years now. If you look at this graph, you can see that how there has been a fairly rapid increase in the number of the foreign population in Korea. The number of foreign-borns has reached 1.5 million in July last year, 2012, which is equivalent to almost 3% of the Korean population. So that size of the foreign population has doubled in less than 10 years. It has actually almost tripled over about 10 years. So while the absolute number and the share remains still low, especially in OECD comparison, especially for the number of permanent migrants in Korea, you can see that the rise has been pretty steep, with a temporary and short slowdown during the recent financial crisis in 2009. So who are these people and where do they come from? The following table that you're looking at, it shows the composition of foreigners that are staying in Korea right now. And you can see that these people are mostly marriage migrants, students, professional and non-professional workers, investors, and etc. And you can see here that these are the numbers, the end of the year numbers. The most recent ones are from 2011, and you can see that a very large portion is actually made up of non-professional workers. Now, where do they come from? Looking at the numbers from 2011, almost half of them, 48.6% of these people are from China. And going through the list of other countries, except for the US and Japan, all the other countries that you're looking at on the list, Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, and so on, these are all countries with which Korea has signed a bilateral labor sending agreement. So these are really most of them are workers, like unskilled, low-skilled workers coming to Korea for work. So as a matter of fact, Korea is increasingly, especially these days, is increasingly becoming a main destination country in Asia for foreign workers. Now moving on to some institutional background. So the current labor migration system in Korea is characterized by its duality, meaning that there are distantly different paths leading into either low-skilled or high-skilled employment, each with corresponding eligibility requirements, benefits, and of course restrictions. So the current, so how we divide high-skilled and low-skilled workers right now is, as a rule of thumb, is really depends on the visa that the foreign individual holds, and the current quote-unquote definition of high-skilled workers includes the following 7 visas: professors, foreign language instructors, individuals in research, technological transfer, professional employment, which is for doctors and lawyers, people who hold a professional certificate, people in arts and performances, and then finally specially designated activities. This is a visa for people who work in one of about 78 different occupations that are designated by the Justice Minister of Korea. These visas are usually are generally issued without much problem, as long as the person satisfies all the eligibility requirements, and if the person has an employment contract on hand. Unfortunately, among these sort of high-skilled workers, there's a very high share of English language teachers, which is why sort of quote-unquote there for high-skilled workers. In light of the global competition for talent, there have been several efforts in the past to attract and utilize really highly skilled workers in the fields of science and engineering, such as the Science Card and the Gold Card program. But unfortunately, these efforts have gone largely unsuccessful. So a large share of the foreigners staying in Korea right now, they are low-skilled workers, and they consist of two groups, which are individuals holding a non-professional employment visa, that is the E9 visa, and then people holding the working visit visa, that is the H2 visa. They are both admitted through what is called the employment permit system, which has been in place since 2004, based on the Act on the Employment, etc. of Foreign Workers, which was enacted in 2003. So this was basically the first official provision for the employment of low-skilled foreign workers. And simply put, the non-professional employment visa, the E9 visa, is for non-ethnic, non-Koreans, and the working visit visa is for ethnic Koreans. And the public sector is in charge of almost the entire selection, recruitment, and admission process, which is how transparency has been relatively guaranteed. So a little bit more on the employment permit system. Since this is the system that brings in low-skilled foreign workers, and since we cannot indefinitely just have them enter the country as they wish, there is an annual quota on the number of low-skilled workers who can enter, and this quota is determined by the Foreign Workforce Policy Committee each year, and that quota is again allocated by industry and visa type. And in order to request permission to hire a foreign worker, an employer, of course he needs to file a request first, but an important requirement is that the employer needs to fulfill what is called a labor market test, which is simply a job posting with the local public employment support center, and prove that there's no other suitable alternative, a domestic worker available to hire. What are the main differences between an E9 and an H2 worker? A worker on an E9 visa, how does the employment procedure work? The potential employer reviews a list of recommended candidates, usually at least 3 people for one listing. And the employer makes a selection based on a few pieces of very basic information, which is age, nationality, education, and experience. And the worker is allowed to enter the country after an employment contract is signed and a visa is issued. This process works very different for H2 visas, which are, just to remind you, these are the ethnic Koreans, most of them are from China. These ethnic Koreans, once they obtain the working visit visa, which is the H2 visa, they are free to enter the country and are free to conduct job search as they wish. And another important difference is that these H2 visa holders are permitted to work in services, which is not the case for E9 visa holders, and they can also change employers without pre-authorization, and as many times as they wish. I'll just skip this. And just briefly, a few facts about what are they doing on the labor market. These 2 tables, they show the distribution of the foreign workers by industry and size of the establishment that they're working at. And you can see that most of them work in small-sized manufacturing and services. This table and the next one, the next 2-3 tables, they show how the wage levels and the working conditions here referring to the work hours, how the wages and work hours of foreign workers, how they compare to the ones of domestic workers. And you can see here that while the foreign workers, they work longer hours, as you can see on this table here, they work longer hours across all industries, regardless of sex and establishment size that they work at. They receive less, about 80% in wages of that of comparable domestic workers. So they work longer hours, receive lower wages, And there is some evidence that the labor costs of foreign workers relative to their productivity is actually similar or even higher than that of domestic workers. So simply put, it really doesn't pay off to hire low cost, what they think are low cost, low skilled foreign workers. Now to the labor market impact. This is probably the most sensitive and controversial issue in any country that is admitting foreign workers, high skilled or low skilled, especially low skilled. Unfortunately, due to the lack of data, there are not a lot of studies available yet. The ones that are available, most of them, what the data suggested, the conclusion was either inconclusive or they showed only some marginal, very small, significant, very small negative impact. However, a couple of the most recent studies have confirmed that there is actually a negative impact on the employment of domestic native workers. So this table here is, the numbers here are actually very striking in the sense that the numbers show the percentage of the foreign workforce across different industries and across different firm sizes between 2005 and 2011. And this is the share of the foreign workforce for workplaces that have hired at least one foreign worker during this time period, between 2005 and 2011. And the numbers are striking in the sense that if you look at how regardless of industry or firm size, if you look at how much the numbers go up, it really indicates how the dependency on foreign workers has really gone up a lot during a very short span of time. So in other words, it means that once a firm hires a foreign worker, they're very much bound to hire more and more, and they become more dependent over time. So there's very little done on this issue, and therefore there is a lot to be done in the future. Just to give you a summary of some current issues and some of the challenges that we're facing right now. So one of the biggest problems is that the annual quota for low-skilled workers has been steadily going up, with the exception of 2009, I think, during the financial crisis. So the quota has been expanded over time, and the problem is that the quota has been expanded just based on the fact that there was persistent labor shortage in certain industries and especially in smaller sized firms, and there's little consideration for the causes of and the solution for labor shortages, which is very likely different depending on the sector and so on. And there has also been an absence of coordination with other domestic labor market policies. There has been unintended permanent, well, not permanent yet, but probably it will be permanent in the future. There has been some unintended settlement, overstaying of the visas and so on. There has been unintended settlement of low-skilled foreign workers. And in a matter of less than 5 years, we're going to have quite a few people that will have stayed like almost 10 years in the country now. These people will be low skilled. They are supposed to leave the country, but the question is, will we be able to kick them off then? If not, what are we going to do with them? And then next, there are a lot of direct and indirect administrative costs and others that are involved in bringing in all these low-skilled workers. These costs are borne from taxes from public sources, although the main beneficiaries from bringing in low-skilled workers are the employers, and that is one of the big issues. Firms, like I said before, they make their selection based on some very basic information on the worker, and that is making it difficult to verify how qualified the workers are for the position that they're seeking someone to work at. I haven't spent much time talking about this issue in particular, but there is a mixed and potentially conflicting policy stance on ethnic Koreans. There is the demand-driven labor market approach, which says let's treat them just like we treat any other low-skilled workers, versus a more humanitarian approach, which is more about giving ethnic Koreans economic support. And importantly, there's a lack of comprehensive policy management. Coordination is important and necessary in the design and implementation of a foreign worker policy, which incorporates workers at all skill levels. Just a brief list of the challenges that we're facing moving forward. We have to set down some principles in the foreign worker system. We need to bring in foreign workers that will complement, not substitute, the domestic workforce. We need to prevent this element of low-skilled workers. And also the supply of low-cost, relatively low-cost foreign workers should not act as a subsidy to firms that are not competitive enough. And coming back to complementing the domestic workforce, we need to be cautious about how and who we select. Who we select as workers who are allowed to enter the country, because they're not supposed to substitute domestic workers, which is why we also need a better labor market test. We also need to strengthen competitiveness through productivity enhancement of foreign workers, especially for those who will be staying almost 10 years and maybe even more in the country in the very near future. It is important that we might, for example, provide incentives to them to participate in training programs in order to upgrade their skills, for example. There's increasingly higher social costs associated with foreign workers staying in the country, and especially there needs to be action in order to reduce the number of illegal workers. We also need better strategies to attract high-skilled workers, which includes plans to attract and especially utilize international students. We also need a clear policy direction for ethnic Koreans. And finally, importantly, the foreign workforce policy needs to be implemented with a medium to long-term perspective, and not just based on a short-term, short-term labor shortages, which means that we need to take account of longer-term changes in the demographic and industry structure of Korea. That would be it. Thank you.